What is happening, guys? It's Pete Mundo, HeartlandCollegeSports.com, as we get you ready for another week of the show, Heartland College Sports Weekly. We're your independent Big 12 digital media outlet. Really appreciate you joining us and being a part of the show, because there is so much to get into coming off the college football playoff over the weekend. And, that's where I want to start. So regardless of where or how you're joining us, whether it's the radio, the podcast, YouTube, Facebook, whatever it might be, we appreciate you being a part of the show as we turn into 2019. It's exciting stuff. We got a lot of great things planned for the new year. But let's talk about this college football playoff. We'll start, of course, with OU, where it is so disappointing with how the Sooners started off this game. Not just defensively, not just giving up, 28 straight points. That's bad, right? I mean, we can all agree on that. But with how slow the offense started off, that's what I guess was most surprising to me as anything else. Because and I know oftentimes how this works, right? The first X amount of plays in a football game for both teams are mapped out. I mean, just perfectly mapped out. And to think that OU goes 3 and out on its first drive, 5 plays and punts on its second drive, 5 plays, turnover on downs on its third drive. Meantime, Alabama goes touchdown, 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 touchdown. It's like the game was over. And I knew the defense. We all knew the defense was going to be bad. If you told me Alabama was going to score 45 points, I would have said, okay, I expect that. My prediction was Alabama 49, Oklahoma 45. I like to think I got somewhat close there, but it's not really the point. The point is Oklahoma is going to look back on these 2 seasons with 2 Heisman winners and come out and say to themselves, geez, we couldn't even get to the national championship game because of our defense. And a lot of guys got defensive on Twitter after the game. I saw Kenneth Murray was getting defensive, Curtis Bolton getting defensive. First off, Kenneth Murray was like knocking guys out of bounds and pumping his chest when the team's down 28-0 and you've given up 4 straight touchdowns. Easy, buddy. Easy. All right? I mean, I hate this argument from athletes, and it's not to rag on Kenneth Murray, but he put something on Twitter, something along the lines of basically, you can't do what I do, therefore keep your mouth shut. It's like that argument from athletes is so old and so worn out and just so inaccurate. I don't have to play the game right now to know that your defense got run over in that opening quarter and a half. It did. All right? And you know what else the game made me realize? Kyler Murray's not Baker Mayfield. Kyler Murray is a great athlete, a good quarterback, in a great system. Baker Mayfield was a great quarterback, a good athlete in a great system. And when you're playing in a game of this type of magnitude against a defense like that, I'm sorry, if Baker Mayfield's the quarterback, that team is not down 28-0. That's just how I feel about it. Now, I'm hearing a lot of this from the OU fans. Well, we outscored them 34-17 over the final, couple of quarters? Or I guess from 28-0, we outscored them by a final of 34-17, right? You can't look at it like that. You just can't look at it like that. I mean, come on. And I know when a team's up 28-0, it changes its game plan a little bit. They can give up points. They can change how they're playing defense. They can play more of a prevent style. They can let you score a couple of touchdowns. I'm not saying Alabama did. I think it kept its foot on the pedal. But stylistically, you change what you do. So, this whole, if it wasn't for the 28-0 deficit, we would have won. You can't look at it that way. I'm sorry. And I wanted OU to win this game, of course, pulling for the Big 12, wanting to see this conference finally get over that hump and finally get to the conference championship game. That would have been the time to do it. I still think last year stings more against Georgia. But, boy, I went into this game cautiously optimistic, still predicting a loss, but at no point did I see 28-0. If anything, I thought Alabama's defense might get stronger as the game went on, maybe figure things out, catch up to the tempo of what OU was doing, and that's the opposite of what happened. So it was a letdown for OU. I mean, still the Big 12 has not played in a college football playoff championship game since this college football playoff started, and that's upsetting and disappointing. But last year was the year. It doesn't sting like the Georgia game does last year. That was such a crushing loss. But I also think back, and I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, which year might have actually been the best year for the Big 12 to win a national championship? And I keep strangely coming back to TCU or Baylor in the first year of 2014-15. I don't know, something about those two teams that were so underrated because they were not traditional powers and traditional blue bloods, and because there was no Big 12 championship game, and everybody loved Ohio State, and Ohio State, to their credit, did win the national championship that year. But I just wonder if that was the year over these last 5-6 years of the college football playoff that actually was the best opportunity for the Big 12, not just to get to the national championship game, but to win it. You know, I mean, we don't know, but I would have loved to have seen it. Nobody wanted to play, especially TCU. Remember TCU then demolished Ole Miss in that Peach Bowl game? Nobody wanted to play TCU that year. Now, we'll never know what would have happened, but that TCU team, maybe that Baylor team, and then OU last year, those are the best shots. So Oklahoma, goes into the offseason. Lincoln Riley's recruited really well. He's got a great class coming in, again, a top 10 class. He's recruited better than Bob Stoops. Got to figure out what he's doing at defensive coordinator. I know there's been some rumblings of names that have come out there and that have been floated about. But if he doesn't get this defense figured out, and don't tell me he can't. I mean, look at what Johnny Heacock's doing at Iowa State. Look at what Todd Orlando did last year, and somewhat not as effective this year, but still really good this year. You can play defense in this league and do it well and still have a pretty up-tempo offense. TCU, Gary Patterson. But that side of the ball is just so disappointing for OU, and it's not a talent thing. There are 4-star guys. There are a couple of 5-star guys. They just don't get coached up. And in hindsight, maybe Lincoln Riley should have cut the cord on Mike Stoops when he got the job, but, let's be fair. He couldn't do that. He couldn't fire the brother of the guy that just basically handed him his job on a silver platter. When Bob Stoops retired, that would have been impossible to do. So he was kind of stuck where he was here, but it's still disappointing to look back on this season and these last couple of years and wonder what could have been with just a mediocre defense. So that's kind of where this team stands right now, and we'll see. I think OU is going to be fine, but they got to figure out that side of the ball. Now, the other game, I want to touch on this briefly. Clemson blows out Notre Dame, right? And one of the things I said and tweeted out before the college football playoff was that when this weekend wraps up, the conversation's not going to be, should Georgia have gotten in over OU? The conversation's going to be, should Notre Dame have ever been in the college football playoff? And the answer was no. I mean, every time we sit here and we talk about Notre Dame as if, this is 1952. And it's not. And we give this program way the hell too much credit. We do it every single year. And it was clear Notre Dame had no business being on the field with Clemson. It was embarrassing. And you think about this team. Notre Dame is now 0-6 in BCS or New Year's Six bowls. They've lost by an average of 24 points per game in those matchups. Enough with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. It's pathetic that we keep giving them credit that they aren't in a conference where we can actually evaluate them against some of the great teams in the other conferences. They insist they got to have somewhat independence. I know they play the ACC schedule, but let's be fair here when it comes to the Irish. They pick and choose who they want to play so they can keep those rivalries against Navy and Army and Air Force. And no offense, anybody that cares about those rivalries has one foot in the grave at this point. Is that fair to say that anybody that cares about Notre Dame playing Navy is at least collecting Social Security? All right? I mean, this is 2018. Get yourself in a conference, because then if you're in a conference, you got to win a conference championship game. You can't just backdoor your way in with this 12-0 record. And I know they had a solid season. I get it. They did play some tough teams. They did win some tough games. But we give that program way too much leeway. And considering the Big 12 was basically forced to put together a Big 12 championship game, which I'm glad that they did, it's worked out well for this conference. The fact that Notre Dame is not held to the same standard and does its own thing because it wants to is beyond disappointing, a massive letdown, and frankly, it's pathetic that the hierarchy in college football doesn't take a stronger stand against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I'm Pete Mundo, HeartlandCollegeSports.com. Heartland College Sports Weekly is the show. Well, some more coaching news in the Big 12. What do we make of this latest news involving Dana Holgorsen and the Mountaineers? We'll talk about it coming up right here on Heartland College Sports Weekly, part of HeartlandCollegeSports.com.